Millions of people typed the same two names into their search bar this week. Not because of a movie, not because of a meme. Because two men who spent years on completely opposite trajectories are suddenly on a collision course again, and the internet cannot look away. You probably know the names: Conor McGregor, Max Holloway, but here is what the headlines are not telling you. This rematch is not just a fight. It is the most psychologically loaded matchup in combat sports right now. And the reasons why it has exploded across every trending list have almost nothing to do with what happens inside the octagon. Let's go back to where this started. The year is 2013. The UFC is still finding its footing as a mainstream product. Social media is young. The idea of a fighter becoming a genuine global celebrity is still theoretical. Then a loud, brash Irishman with a two-piece suit and an accent that seemed to cut through a room steps onto a stage, and nothing is ever quite the same again. Conor McGregor does not just fight, he performs. He rewrites the rules of what a combat sports athlete can be. Within 2 years, he is carrying entire pay-per-view cards on his name alone. He is filling arenas in cities that had never put a UFC event on the map. He is generating numbers that make the organization's executives blink twice. And in the middle of that rise, there is a fight. A relatively quiet fight, by McGregor's standards. A featherweight bout in 2013. His opponent is a 21-year-old from Hawaii with a wide smile and an unassuming demeanor. The name on the card is Max Holloway. McGregor wins by decision. It is not a spectacular finish. It does not make the highlight reels the way his later knockouts would. Holloway walks away from that fight with a loss on his record, and most analysts file it away under the category of a promising kid who got in over his head too soon. Then the decade unfolds. McGregor ascends to a level of fame that almost defies categorization. He becomes the first fighter in UFC history to hold 2 championship belts simultaneously. He crosses over into boxing, steps into the ring against Floyd Mayweather, and generates somewhere in the region of $500 million in revenue from a single event. His name is printed on a whiskey bottle in 60 countries. He is not just a fighter, he is a franchise. And Max Holloway? Max Holloway quietly becomes one of the greatest featherweights in the history of the sport. That is not hyperbole. That is the measured, considered opinion of analysts who have spent their careers watching this game. After that loss to McGregor, Holloway goes on a run that lasts for years. He wins the interim featherweight championship, then the undisputed title. He defends it multiple times. He fights at lightweight, takes on Dustin Poirier for an interim belt, and even in defeat, he is extraordinary to watch. His style is unlike anything else in the sport. Where McGregor built his career on precision and power, and the art of the single devastating moment, Holloway is something different. He is volume. He is pressure. He is the fighter who walks forward for 25 minutes and makes you feel like the walls of the cage are closing in on his opponent. He has been described by corner teams as the hardest fighter in the world to prepare for because his output in the later rounds of a fight is higher than most fighters can sustain in the first. By the time 2024 arrives, Max Holloway has faced Alexander Volkanovski in a series of fights that have been called the greatest rivalry in UFC featherweight history. He has won a BMF title. He has become the fighter that the hardcore combat sports audience references when they want to talk about pure, undiluted skill and heart. And McGregor? McGregor has not fought since 2021. This is the part that the trending searches are really about. When Conor McGregor broke his leg in a fight against Dustin Poirier in July of that year, the sporting world held its breath. The injury was severe. The recovery was long. The questions started almost immediately. Would he come back? Could he come back? The man who had redefined what a combat sports star could be was suddenly invisible from competition, and the absence created a vacuum that the sport has been trying to fill ever since. The years passed, announcements came and went. Return dates were floated and retracted. McGregor was seen training. McGregor was seen posting on social media. McGregor was involved in legal proceedings that cast a shadow over any potential comeback. The sport moved on without him, and yet his name never left the conversation, because the conversation about the UFC is, in many ways, still a conversation about what he built. Now his name is paired again with the man he beat in 2013. And the internet responds the way the internet always responds when two enormous forces converge at exactly the right moment. Think about what this matchup represents in the framing of a story. You have the man who defined an era, returning after years in the wilderness. You have the man he once dismissed, who spent that same era building a quiet, relentless, extraordinary legacy. The prodigal star versus the heir who never got to claim the throne outright. The spectacle against the craft, the myth against the machine. That is not a fight card. That is a narrative. And narratives are what drive search volume, not just the combat sports audience. The casual observer who knows McGregor from the whiskey ads, from the memes, from the Mayweather event, from the two-suit press conferences. That audience does not follow fight records or divisional rankings. They follow stories. And this story has been sitting in the background for a decade, waiting for the right moment to surface. There's something else happening here that is worth paying attention to. The timing of this rematch lands inside a larger cultural moment around combat sports. Boxing has seen a resurgence driven in part by exhibitions, celebrity fights, and the platforming of new audiences through social media events. The UFC itself has been navigating a transition period, searching for its next crossover superstar, the next fighter who can pull the audience that does not normally buy a pay-per-view. McGregor, at his peak, was that fighter. There has not been another one like him since. What this rematch offers the promotion is the possibility, however uncertain, of a return to that era. Even if it is brief, even if it is a single event. The combination of McGregor's name and the legitimacy of facing a fighter of Holloway's caliber is the closest thing to a guaranteed conversation the sport can generate. And for Holloway, the calculation is different but equally clear. He has done everything inside the octagon that the sport can ask of a fighter. He has the belts, the defenses, the rivalry, the legacy. The one thing his career does not have is a blockbuster moment that reaches beyond the core audience. A win over McGregor, over the version of McGregor that the general public still carries in their heads, would be that moment. It would write his name into the kind of conversation that transcends the sport. So you have two people entering this fight with completely different things to prove and completely different things to gain. And that asymmetry is what makes it compelling to watch even before the first punch is thrown. You have been searching their names this week because somewhere in the back of your mind, you understand that this is not just a sports event. It is a reckoning. It is the culmination of a decade-long story that began with a quiet decision in 2013 that split into two separate trajectories, and that is now converging again in a way that neither man could have predicted when they first stood across from each other in that cage. The internet does not trend for fights. The internet trends for stories, and this one has been a long time coming. You typed their names into a search bar this week. Now you know why you could not stop.